Hey y'all, it's Skinny Mermaid here we're gonna talk about something that is a very semi-serious subject today, and it is going to be about growing up with no dad. Okay, so this is a big problem in our country and practically around the world, and it's not just the typical stereotype of, oh, he's a black guy, he must have left his family, you know. Mexican dads always leave their family. No, I'm Middle Eastern, and I'm half Middle Eastern, half white, and my Middle Eastern dad was the one who left. Okay, so it's not something that's uncommon. It is very common. And for me, it was kind of different. So my mom was a crazy mother. She's a crazy person overall. She kind of tricked my dad into having me. They used to know each other when they were younger, and then they met up again after several marriages that she's had that failed, after kids that she's already had. So at that time she had 4 kids, and she had gone through 3 marriages, and she ended up cheating on her current husband with my father, and in the result there was me. So what happened is they ended up meeting, some crazy stuff went down, got hot and heavy. And I came in result, but the thing is, she was on purposely trying to get pregnant because her thought was, oh, I love him and I want him to stay. Therefore, to make him stay, I'm gonna have a child with him. So he has to be with me for the rest of her life and the rest of, my life. So she ended up getting pregnant. Like, her plan, her secret crazy plan was, don't do this, people. That is not the right thing to do. It doesn't, nothing comes good from it. And so she ended up getting pregnant. He didn't end up knowing that I was even a thing until I was over 2 years old, and she ended up crying on my first birthday because he never showed up, even though he didn't know about me. She cried on my second birthday because he didn't show up, even though he still didn't know about me. And so at that point, she was just so upset. So I remember, like, well, I don't remember this, but I remember her telling me that she ended up going and looking for him, and then she ended up finding him, telling him about me, showing him pictures, saying that it is his. And then he was interested because I do have his similar facial features, but I don't look exactly like him. Like, he's a very dark man and like being Middle Eastern, and I'm a very light Middle Eastern, but there's a lot of light Middle Easterns. I'm Turkish, and I kind of grew up around the Turkish culture, and so I was very used to it by the time I like hit middle school. But then at that time is when I kind of left it behind me. But my mom, since I was Turkish and he wasn't in my life, she wanted to get me involved in that type of thing. She tried to learn Turkish. Honestly, she failed because she thought hello and one was the same thing. It's not. One is bir, and then hello is merhaba. So, like, totally two different things. And she ended up arguing with me about it. And I'm like, no, I know the language. I even learned it for 3 years because dad wouldn't teach me. So he was, in a way, he was around, but at the same time, he really wasn't. He showed up once or twice a year, gave me money, say, oh yeah, I'll be back next week, and never showed up. I haven't seen him for over a year, and before that, I didn't see him for over a year. So then, the older I got, the less he showed up, and he'd only show up for like an hour, and the hour was him just arguing with my mom and then leaving. And it always confused me because when I saw kids holding their dad's hand, I was confused. I was like, why is their dad in their life? Like, that doesn't make sense. I never had my dad in my life. Like, I would ask my mom, like, hey, why are they holding hands? Like, that's kind of weird, right? And she was like, no, that's actually not weird. You just don't have your dad. And so it kind of hurt me because I was like, what do you mean? Like, it's not normal to not have your dad in, like, your life. I thought it was like the mom raises you while the dad kind of just does his own thing. That's literally how I thought when I was a little kid. And I was so surprised when it was like when kids would bring their dads with them somewhere or something like that. And there was always this father daughter dance, like, because I was in Girl Scouts, and it was so sad because my mom was always working, so she couldn't go with me. So it was always my older sisters taking me to this father daughter dance, and then I see all these girls with their fathers, and it always hurt me because my dad never came. My mom always invited him, but he never went. And one time he went, and that was probably like the last time I went. But he went one time, and honestly, it made me uncomfortable because I was like, I'm not used to this. it's awkward between us. You know, we're not close. You know, I'm not around him. I'm like, and it was always me wanting attention from him because I never got that. You know, I never got that from him, and I always wanted that from him, but it was never gonna happen. And he always, every time he would come around, he'd always give me money. He'd always give people money. And I remember him telling my mom, saying that I can't come around unless I have money, or else I have nothing to offer. And honestly, that's kind of sad, but looking back on it, he was such a horrible dad. And the only thing I got from it was money. But even now, like, I haven't talked to him in so long. I don't even know where he is. After I turned 13, after I turned 13, he basically disappeared. A lot of my family thinks he just went back to Turkey, which makes sense because he always was talking about it. And he wanted to bring me, but never did. His son, which is also my brother, wanted to take me to Turkey as well, which I wanted to go. You know, I knew the language, I could talk to people, and they still never took me, and I don't know where my dad is right now, which honestly I'm not hurt by it because I don't like my dad. When I hit 11 years old, my mom really knew this guy, and I just kind of went along with it, and he ended up being a horrible person, crazy guy. Like, I couldn't stand being around him, and he hated me, I hated him, and I felt so bad. I called him names, I did this to him, I did that to him, but then in return he would do other things to me, and it's not like he raped or molested me. It wasn't like that. It was just a horrible relationship that should have never been like that. And growing up without a dad affected my childhood because I was always confused seeing other kids with their dads. Like in middle school too. Like this girl was holding her dad's hand while we were like walking to the teacher confirmation, or I don't know what it was called. And I was even confused then. I was like, why? Like, not only was I confused, like, why is she holding her dad's hand, but I was also confused, like, how old are you now? Like, you still holding your dad's hand? But then I'm seeing it now. People still do that. So, like, I'm even confused by that. And, like, I wasn't ever a daddy's girl. Like, maybe when I was, like, super, super young. But even then, he wasn't there. He showed up once or twice a year. And then as I got older, he just stopped showing up. Don't even know where he is now. Last time I talked to him was a year ago. And that was on the phone. So, like, it really does affect you, because then I was younger and my teachers, you know, I always wanted to introduce my teachers to my dad, which was so sad. And thinking back to it now, I can, like, just see my teacher's uncomfortable face. Because I tell them, oh my gosh, do you want to meet my dad? And they're like, sure, you know, that wasn't really a big deal with other kids, right? And I would get so excited to show them who my dad was. I would get so excited just to introduce them to my dad. And it honestly hurts so much looking back on it, because I was so excited just to show my teacher who my dad was. Like, a kid shouldn't feel like that. A kid shouldn't, like, it's just different. You were always considered different, you know. Your mom always looked at you different. Your mom was always stressing. You're so used to having the mother be such a dominant role in your life that you at that point you stop leaning on other men as support. You know, you grow up independent because you didn't have your dad. Your mom was always doing her own thing, and then when I got older, she literally started doing her own thing and kind of just left me in the dust. But that's cool. That was fine by me. You don't know where to turn to a kind of parental guide. And throughout my life, I've looked at certain men and I think of them like as my fathers, but I know for a fact, no, like they're not. And they always think of me as their daughter, but then there was times where it got inappropriate and they started thinking about me in different ways instead of like a daughter, and I thought of them as my father. So I had to cut that off. So I've never had a father-daughter relationship. And the ones that I did, it ended up getting creepy and weird, and I have to like, wait a minute, that's not how, no, like, I got the wrong idea. Like, please leave me alone now. Like, don't come near me anymore. If you grew up without a father, I think you know what I'm talking about. And if you went through similar things, or just thinking about it, like, once you get older, you kind of get more used to it, so it doesn't hurt as much. But then when you really deeply think about it, it really does hurt. Because then you just think so differently. And, like, seeing other people and hanging out with their friends or their parents, and they always have to ask their dad's permission. I'm like, why do you have to ask your dad's permission? Just ask your mom's. And then like they're all like, no, my dad's the main one in the house. I'm like, that's stupid. Like, I've said that. And that's probably not what I should have said, but I said that. It's a very sensitive subject that some people are too afraid to talk about, but honestly at some point it needs to be talked about. And men need to really step up, because if you guys don't, like teenagers now, because I know a lot of teenagers watch my channel, if you guys are gonna end up getting a girl pregnant, let me tell you guys, be in that child's life. Like, please. Like it bothers me if people are like, no, it's just a kid, I don't need to be in their life. What do you mean it's just a kid? Like, if you have a baby and you go over to see your baby like once a month and that baby doesn't even recognize you, let me tell you something, that is hardcore, some emotional problems. That child is going to grow up with certain feelings that they're not even going to know about. Like, I don't know exactly what I'm saying. It's just, it's such a bad thing to not grow up in your child's life. Like, to not be around them. Because it affects them. It affects their childhood. It affects their development. It affects their thinking. It affects them in the long run as they're trying to parent their own children. You know? So just be there for your kids. People now, teenagers, kids, whoever's watching, adults, mostly teenagers. I know a lot of teenagers watch my channel. But if you guys grew up without a dad, it's not something that you should let hold you back. Because I never let it hold me back, and I'm not still letting it hold me back. But just thinking about it kind of, like, makes me double think stuff. But, like, you are loved. Like, even if your dad doesn't love you, someone loves you. Your mom loves you. She worked so hard just to keep food on the table. She took care of you. She took you in at night, you know, like, she did this and that for you. You know, thank her, because it is so hard without a father. You know, and my mom raised 5 kids all by herself, because each dad would leave, or she would divorce them because they were always drunk and crazy or something like that. And she raised 5 kids on her own. And if my mama could raise 5 kids on her own, like, trust me, any woman can. You know, because that's a big responsibility to meet up to. So men, please be there for the kids. And kids, you guys are loved. You know, your mom did it for you. So I'll see you guys later. See you next time. I want to do a question and answers next week. So a Q&A. So comment down below as many questions as you want. Honestly, please comment, because you guys don't comment and I don't know what to do for my next video, and then no one does anything. So this time, just some questions in the comments so I can do a Q&A next week. I'll see you fishes later. Mermaids, merpeople, seals, watermelon. Yeah!